Valerie had never been the type to receive Valentine's gifts. She wasn't particularly romantic. She didn't expect chocolates, flowers, or love letters. That's why, when she found a neatly folded envelope in her mailbox a week before Valentine's Day, she felt an odd mix of excitement and unease. The paper was thick, expensive, and smelled faintly of roses. The handwriting, elegant and precise, read only 4 chilling words. The perfect surprise awaits. There was no name, no sender, just the promise of something special. Valerie dismissed it as a prank. Maybe her friends were messing with her. But the next day, another letter arrived. This one held a single red rose, its petals soft yet strangely damp, as if it had been plucked fresh from the earth. For my dearest Valerie, a week from now you will know what true love feels like. Wait for me. She wanted to laugh it off. She really did. But something about the wording, something about the way true love was written, felt off. That night she locked all her doors. The gifts keep coming. Each day the admirer left a new token of affection. On Monday she found a box of chocolates on her doorstep. Classic, right? Except when she bit into one, her mouth filled with an odd metallic taste. Blood. She spat it out, staring in horror at the dark reddish ooze leaking from the center. Not caramel, not raspberry filling, something else. The next day, a small velvet ring box arrived. But inside wasn't a ring, it was a key. To what she didn't know. She wanted to go to the police, she wanted to throw the gifts away. But some morbid curiosity held her back. She needed to know who was doing this. Valentine's night, the final gift. The final letter came on February 14th. It was tucked under her windshield wiper, waiting for her as she left work. Tonight, midnight, the park, I'll be waiting with your final gift. She should have ignored it. She should have called someone, but she didn't. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. So at 11:45 p.m., she found herself walking toward the park, the cold air biting at her skin. The world was eerily quiet. The lamplights flickered. Every step she took felt heavier than the last. Then, she saw it. A wooden box. Not a table, not a bench. A coffin. It was set upright, propped against a tree, its polished surface gleaming under the moonlight. Her stomach twisted. "Hello?" she whispered. Silence. She turned to leave. That's when the world went black. And buried alive. Valerie woke up choking on darkness. Her breathing was shallow, the air was thin, and then she felt it. Wood. Above her, beside her, beneath her. She was inside the coffin, and it was moving. Dirt rained down from above, slipping through the cracks. She could feel the weight of the earth pressing against the box, hear the soft, muffled thud of a shovel. She screamed. Her fingernails tore at the lid, splinters slicing into her skin. "Let me out!" A soft crackle filled the space, then a voice. "My love," it whispered. "I told you I had the perfect surprise." Her breath caught in her throat. No, it couldn't be. "I've been waiting for this moment," the voice continued. "You and me, together, forever." She gasped, her mind racing. Who was it? An ex, a stalker, a co-worker? Then the sound of dirt stopped. Silence. The muffled thuds of the shovel against the earth were gone. She had been buried completely. A fresh grave. Her lungs heaved. Her hands trembled as she clawed at the coffin's lid. But the weight of the dirt above her pressed back. She was trapped. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her breath coming in short, desperate gasps. No more screaming. No more fighting. This was it. Her life would be gone. No one would find her. No one would even know where to look. Her hands curled into fists. No, she wouldn't die like this. Then she remembered the key, the small velvet box. It had to open something. Her hands fumbled through her pockets. Yes, the key was still there. With shaking fingers, she felt along the coffin's interior. There, a lock. She shoved the key inside, twisting desperately. Click! The coffin creaked open. She gasped for air, clawing her way through the loose dirt, her lungs burning. And then, hands grabbed her. A strong grip pulled her out. She was gasping, sobbing, the freezing night air cutting through her sweat-soaked skin. And then, she saw him. Ryan, her savior. "Valerie, oh my God!" he cried, pulling her into his arms. I found you just in time." Relief washed over her. He had saved her. He had really saved her. Her legs were weak, her breathing uneven. Ryan held her tightly, rubbing her back. "Come on, let's get you home." She nodded, too shaken to argue. Something's not right. The drive back was eerily silent. Valerie sat in the passenger seat, still shaking, her hands covered in dirt. Ryan kept glancing at her. "You okay?" She nodded numbly. "Yeah, just tired." Her mind felt hazy, but something gnawed at her. How did he find me? She hadn't called him, she had called her best friend. She turned to him, eyes narrowing. "Ryan, how did you know where I was?" He hesitated. "What do you mean?" She swallowed. "You said you saved me, but I never called you." The grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Well, I got a text." "A text?" she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. Something cold crawled up her spine. She reached into her pocket. Her phone was dead, had been dead for hours. Her heartbeat quickened. Ryan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Don't worry about it, just rest." Her hands clenched. Her gaze flickered to the back seat. The shovel, still covered in fresh dirt. Her breath hitched. "No, no, no, no." "Valerie?" She didn't answer. Her fingers curled into fists. The car slowed as they neared her house. "Almost home," Ryan said softly. She looked toward the trunk. "Ryan," she said slowly, "pop the trunk for me." He hesitated. "What? Why?" She stared at him, heart hammering. "Just open it." Ryan exhaled, clicking the button on the dashboard. The trunk unlatched. Valerie stepped out. The night was eerily quiet. She lifted the trunk lid and froze. Inside, wedged between the spare tire and a tangle of ropes, the coffin. The very one she had been buried in. Her coffin. The blood drained from her face. The world spun. Slowly, she turned back to Ryan. He was watching her, smiling. The final blow. She grabbed the shovel and swung. The metal connected with Ryan's temple. His head snapped sideways. Valerie lunged out, panting. Ryan groaned, dazed but still conscious. Blood dripped down his face. He looked up at her, confusion and something darker flashing in his eyes. "Valerie," he rasped. "Why?" Her entire body trembled. She stared at him, at the man who had buried her, at the man who had pretended to save her. She dragged the coffin out of the trunk. Ryan whimpered, trying to crawl away. She raised the shovel again. This time she wouldn't stop. A burial in reverse. Ryan's breaths were ragged as he stumbled back, his hands weakly pushing against the dirt. "Valerie, let's talk about this," he stammered. "You don't have to do this." She stood over him, gripping the shovel tightly, her heart hammering in her chest. "You buried me," she said quietly. I was going to dig you out. I swear," he pleaded, his eyes darting between her and the coffin beside him. She exhaled slowly. "Get in." Ryan froze. The night stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. "You're insane," he whispered. Valerie tilted her head. "I wasn't the one who dug a grave for someone I claimed to love." Ryan tried to bolt. Valerie swung the shovel. The metal cracked against his side, sending him stumbling backward. He tripped, crashing onto the ground, gasping in pain. Before he could recover, she grabbed his arms. "Valerie, wait!" She dragged him toward the coffin. Ryan kicked and thrashed, but he was weak, disoriented. She wrenched open the lid, forcing him inside. "Please," he sobbed, his hands pushing against the edges. "We can talk about this." Valerie didn't answer. She slammed the coffin shut and sealed it. Orion's panicked pounding erupted from inside. Then came his muffled screams, then desperate scratching. She took a deep breath, wiped the sweat from her brow and rolled the coffin into the open grave. The impact sent a deep, hollow thud through the night. Ryan was inside, trapped. She grabbed the shovel again and started filling the hole. The last Valentine. Ryan fought. He thrashed, his hands pushing against the dirt as she shoveled it in. "Valerie, stop!" he shouted, his voice thick with terror. She didn't stop. She kept shoveling, her arms aching, the dirt piling higher. Ryan's protest turned into muffled pleas, then softer, then silent. She didn't know how much time had passed. Her muscles were screaming, her hands numb from the cold. But it was done. The ground was smooth again. The coffin was buried. Ryan was gone. Valerie stood over the grave, gripping the shovel tightly. The wind whispered through the trees, rustling the leaves. She looked down at the dirt, her breath slow and steady. No one would ever find him. No one would ever look for him. She turned away, her footsteps light as she disappeared into the night. For the first time in her life, she felt truly, blissfully free.